Hey, brand builder, Rory Vaden here. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out this interview. As always, it's our honor to provide it to you for free. And wanted to let you know there's no big sales pitch or anything coming at the end. However, if you are someone who is looking to build and monetize your personal brand, we would love to talk to you and get to know you a little bit and hear about some of your dreams and visions and share with you a little bit about what we're up to see if we might be a fit. So if you're interested in a free strategy call with someone from our team, we would love to hear from you. You can do that at brandbuildersgroup.com/podcall, brandbuildersgroup.com/podcall. We hope to talk to you soon. Chester Elton was our guest this week on the Influential Personal Brand, and this is the recap edition of that episode. I am joined by my partner in shine, AJ Vaden. We're breaking down the interview because, we've both known Chester for a really long time. We haven't seen him in a while, but he was an influential person in our life, and so it was great to reconnect. And AJ, welcome to the show. Looking forward to getting your thoughts on this.
Well, looking forward to giving you all my many opinions.
So I think looking back at this episode, to me, it really was about how to dominate a niche. And that is something that Chester and his, writing partner, business partner, Adrian, have really done. They were the carrot guys, and they carved out this like very specific niche that they have just dominated for decades at this point. And, my first big takeaway, which is going to be something near and dear to your heart, AJ, I know, is just having proprietary data helps you dominate. And, when I look at some of the most successful like speakers specifically that we know, I think of Sally Hogshead and Jason Dorsey, and I think of David Horsager and Chester Elton. And it's like, these folk, Tom Rath, these folks have proprietary data that really is real data, and it really helps you kind of like define a niche. I also think of Michael Stelzner does this really well with Social Media Examiner.
Chalene Johnson, and the list goes on.
It goes on. So that was my first big takeaway. And I know, obviously, in the not so distant past, you led our national research study, Trends in Personal Branding. And so I figured, I don't know if that stuck out to you, but that was a big takeaway for me.
Yeah, that was my first point, probably in a little bit different context than you just shared. But I literally highlighted this quote that having proprietary data helps you dominate, period. It helps you dominate. It helps you get on media. It helps you clarify your niche. It helps you reach new target demographics. It helps you with credibility. It helps you in so many different ways. It helps your content strategy. Like, there's countless ways that it helps. But one of the things that really stuck out to me that I thought was really important in this interview is that it's not just having the data. You have to understand the data. And that data gives you credibility, but it's not necessarily the data points that people remember. It's the stories that people remember. And because you have data, what your job is as the owner of the data is to learn how to truly understand it and interpret that data to the general public, and then take that and create a story with that data that helps your audience. So to me, it's like having the data is the given. It's the requirement. It's the necessity. We've probably heard it 12 times this year so far, that data is the new, differentiator, right? It is the new competitive advantage. It's like information and data, and proprietary data is the new competitive advantage. But having the data really isn't good enough, right? You have to understand the data. You have to interpret the data.
Yeah.
But what you really have to do is take that data and create stories that mean something to your audience, because it's the stories that they'll remember. And so as an example from this interview, I thought these were some things that stuck out to me. Said they had 100,000 people take this motivators assessment, right? And of that, 18% referenced severe anxiety at work. But by 2020, that 18% had turned into 30% of the workforce. But then if you just parcel that out and just look at millennials and Gen Z, it was 42%. And the story that really started to form for me is, our kids are the generation right after Gen Z. So I'm like, well, good gosh, what if we don't start making some serious changes, like what does that look like for my kids? And what you're saying, that we're telling these young people who are graduating high school or college or, trade schools, we're saying the moment you enter the workforce, almost half of you will experience severe anxiety. Like, what?
Scary.
So those are the things, to me, it's like, it's the data, but it's really the story that the data tells that I think you really have to own. So I know that was a long point. I'll make the other one shorter, but that was most significant to me.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, it's hard enough to get data, and then it's hard to interpret it and make it applicable. And that's one thing that they've done. And so I thought that was good. So the other thing that stuck out to me from this specific interview, obviously Chester and Adrian have sold a lot of books, and they've gotten I'm pretty sure Portfolio is who they publish with, or have published most of them with. And just a good reminder, which we know and we talk about, and we we teach people, but what publishers are really buying is your marketing plan. The author's job is to sell the books. And we actually did our bestseller launch plan event last week at the time of, compared to this recording, when we're actually recording this. And one of the things that we said, which we'd never really said before so clearly, is that most authors build a book and then try to build an audience.
Yeah.
And it's extremely difficult. Like, you have to build the audience first and then build the book for the audience. That's how the book becomes successful. And so anyways, I just thought that was a good reminder, as always, to just go, yeah, like a huge part of this is just marketing, not necessarily who has the best ideas.
No, I think that's really good. That did not make it on my top 3 list. So that was good. I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah.
But that's true, right? It's like, if you have the audience, then it can carry any product or service versus build the product and then try to build the audience. That's really good. My second thing is probably just something that resonated with me stronger, is that if you try to be too many things to too many people, you become nothing. Right? If you become too many things to too many people, you become nothing. And I love this. And he said it became really clear to Chester that the place where business people go, his audience, was LinkedIn. And we've had this discussion in our house here recently about, like,
LinkedIn. You and I have talked about it.
All right. So that's probably why it just really stuck out to me, is that, LinkedIn is the place where this professional crowd goes to source information, find service providers, do all the things. And it's not that Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and Facebook and YouTube aren't other really important platforms. That's not what I'm saying. But I thought this was just really good, is that you got to figure out where's your place and what is the thing that you want to be to your people, and what place are those people going. And, he said, like, it was LinkedIn. So we went all in on LinkedIn. And because they went all in on LinkedIn, they got into this influencers program. And because they got into this influencers program really, really early, they got more opportunities, and then more opportunities and more opportunities. And to me, I think that just it speaks really, really clearly to a lot of our audience, where it's so overwhelming to think about, okay, I've got to create content for all these different platforms, and some of it needs to be original, some can be repurposed, and then I've got to do all these things in all these platforms, which I think is really important, right? And I think you do need to be all the places, but it's how much of you needs to be in all the places. And what if you just said, okay, I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure I'm spreading my content everywhere, but I'm also going to go all in on the one platform that I most resonate with, that my audience most resonates in, and I'm going to just, like, double down on that. And that was LinkedIn for them, because they said that's where we found that business people go. So that's probably also my platform, which is why it stuck out to me. But I thought it was really just a great reminder of, you don't have to be all the places all the time and be all the things to all the people.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I mean, for me, like for whatever reason, I'm drawn to Instagram, like just the usability of it. We post stuff on LinkedIn, on Facebook, but like I spend most of my personal time on LinkedIn, and I think
You mean
it,
Instagram?
sorry, did I say link? I said LinkedIn. I meant Instagram. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Whereas you're more on LinkedIn, and I think
Well,
it's,
it's interesting when it comes to personal, I'm on Instagram way more, right? But
right.
that's really
But
for
your voice as a
people.
content creator is more
Yeah.
for LinkedIn.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, to that note, so this was my third takeaway, which it was powerful to hear him say this, because I've thought about this before, and I've kind of heard some studies, although they seem not super reliable, but that it takes 4 or 5 impressions for someone to buy your book. And I've heard all sorts of numbers. That's why I'm saying, like, I've heard different studies quoted on this, but not any that were totally authoritative that I feel confident repurposing here. But just as a kind of like a general, anecdotal kind of observation that he was making, which I would totally agree with, is that people have to see you in multiple places. Like, it's not just enough for them to be like, oh, I saw you this one post from you over here. Like, that's not really when they buy. It's when it's like, oh, I heard you on this podcast, and now I just saw your book on a shelf, and hey, here you are. Here's an ad for your webinar funnel in my feed, and oh, look, you're speaking at my company's event next month, right? And it's like that kind of triangulation needs to happen to where you really start, I think, breaking through the wall and creating massive gravity. So it's kind of like figuring out where you can dominate well, but also when you do this, you kind of start to surround people, and just knowing that if people buy from you, they typically aren't going to just buy the very first time they see you. It's going to be more of like
But why not?
multiple
Why?
impression. I know.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about that. No, it's kind of like it's like you intentionally kick in that reticular activation, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's an intentional effort to spark an individual's reticular activation, where and it's a real fancy word that I don't use very often,
The
but it's
reticular activating system. It's like it's like a
yes.
neurological, like a part of our
It's like
brain.
once you become in tune with something, like if I was shopping for a new car and I'm shopping for, a new Infinity SUV, and I'm looking at white Infinities, the next thing I know, I'll see white Infinities everywhere I go. And it's like now your mind has like tuned into like, oh, I'm noticing something that I didn't notice before. And I do agree that being in so many places really helps nurture that. And it's like go all in on one place, but that doesn't mean you ignore all the others. So my third thing that I wrote down was 2-part, and he said the most important thing is consistency. And we have heard that from every single person who has ever been on this show or ever in the history of our
Man.
life and conversation. So that is not new, but such an important reminder across the board, where like if you're posting once a month on LinkedIn or once a week on Instagram, like that's probably not going to do it for you.
Not going to get you there.
And so don't be frustrated when it's not working, right? It's like, I've had clients before. It's like, well, we built it and no one came. Well, that's not really how it works. It's like build it, then market it, then promote it, and then put paid ads to it, and then talk about it everywhere you go, and then maybe people will come. But I also love what he said, is that so much of it is trial and error. So allow yourself the grace to try and fail, and then try again, and then sometimes win. But it's trial and error for each of us. And that's okay. Don't think you have to have it all mapped out and have it perfect the first time. Some of this is just figuring out what resonates. Where do people go? What is your preferred medium? And it's like, but you got to do it consistently enough to even have an opportunity to have some trial and error. And it's just a little bit of grace and have a little bit of patience.
Yeah. I mean, amen to that. The consistency. A lot of it is just sticking around. I mean, Chester's been at this a while, as have we, as have
And
most
it's
of our
also having
friends.
really good content and being super charismatic and like all the things that Chester is. So
Yeah. Well, so that's it. You're hearing and I think it's great when you hear some of the same themes, because you go, oh, it's not just one person. This is really the truth. And That's one of the things that I love about this show as a listener is just hearing the real truth from people who are really out there with top personal brands. And they share, most of the interviews we do on this show are not what they talk about on other shows. Like the content they share with us it's not what they write about in their books. They're kind of giving us the behind the scenes journey. So I love that. We're trying to do that. Hopefully you love that. And if you do, put a shout out for us on social that we can connect with you personally, leave a review, and most of all, just keep coming back. We're so grateful for you. We'll catch